So today we're talking about my top 5 favorite blade steels and why they are my favorite blade steels. We're also going to go through a few other blade steels in order to help understand why I like these steels so much. First off, budget steels, which are not on my list, which I consider mid-grade steels. So my favorite mid-grade steels or budget steels, I don't really like any of the bottom tier or lower grade steels. So these are not part of my top 5, but I feel like I should explain what my favorite budget steels are or my favorite mid-grade steels. So starting it off, 154CM. 154CM is one of my favorite mid-grade steels or budget steels. And the reason why is because it's very affordable, and it's very affordable for the most amount of edge retention you can get out of mid-grade steels. So 154CM is basically a top tier mid-grade steel. Now say S35VN, some people would argue that that's a top tier mid-grade steel, and that would be the peak, the top of the mid-grade steels, or the bottom of premium steels. I'm gonna set that one in the premium steel category. I still think it works right there, and that 154CM is the top tier mid-grade steel. Holds a really good edge. You know, obviously, if it's the best edge holding steel as far as mid-grade steels go, it's a good stainless, sharpens up really well. My one complaint with it, and the one reason why it's at the bottom of my favorite budget steels, is because of the types of edges it takes. So it doesn't like polished edges, and it's not that I like polished edges on everything anyways. I love 154CM. But you don't have the option with that steel if you wanted to go that way. Now, it'll take low angle edges just fine, but not as good as the next steels that we're going to talk about. So my top 2 favorite mid-grade steels, budget steels, is Nitro V and 14C28N. You could kind of even throw 12C27 in there, which is very close to 14C, but Nitro V and 14C are extremely tough steels, like very, very tough steels. These are steels that have great stainless qualities. Now, they don't hold like the longest lasting edge. On a scale, you would say they're probably a 3 out of 10. I say they're a 4 out of 10. 154CM would be like a 4.5, 5 out of 10. I think that 14C is more of a 4 out of 10. Now, the beautiful thing with it, and the reason why it's my favorite, is because of the kind of edges it takes. Because when we're talking about steels and why or why not it's your favorite, having the longest lasting edge is not, in many cases, the best quality. You know, there's a lot of other qualities that make it great and make it wonderful to work with, make it wonderful to sharpen, or whatever. And we're gonna go into lots of that stuff when we get into the top 5. But 14C takes extremely low angles very well. It was originally designed and made for razor blades, and also was made or designed for mass production. And since it was designed for mass production, it's easy for companies to heat treat well. So you rarely see 14C28N or Nitro V done poorly. So that's another reason why I love it, because considering it's a mid-grade steel, you can consider it's going to be mass produced. So you have companies producing these blades, you know, really fast in order to keep the price down. In that case, I want to make sure that my heat treatment is done well. Well, 14C is an easy one for them to do, and they usually always do. It's very, very easy to sharpen. So it's easy for beginners to sharpen, and then if you're really good at sharpening, you'll really love 14C because it takes such a wicked sharp edge. One of the sharpest edges you can get on any steel is going to be on Nitro V and 14C, especially as far as mid-grade steels go. So that's the reason why it's in my top. I love the types of edges it takes. I think it holds an edge pretty well, and then it strops back extremely, extremely easily, and you know, you can do it over and over and over and over, and it does really well with very thin geometry, which if you like super slicey blades, then Nitro V and 14C might be right up your alley. They were literally designed for super thin blades. To get into my top 5 favorite steels to use on a knife, or my favorite blade steels, first off, there's a lot of steels I love. I love so many steels, so it's difficult for me to make a top 5. Like, I love 4V, I love M4, and depending on the application that the steel is going to be used for, might depend on which steel I would want more. Like, say if it's super thin geometry on a folding knife or super thick geometry on a folding knife. Maybe it's a fixed blade, maybe it's a hatchet. So different applications, I will like different steels. But all in all, my top 5 favorite steels are, starting it off, we have VANAX. VANAX steel. So VANAX steel is one of, it's the most corrosion resistant steel. The only steels that are as good as VANAX would be LC200N and H1 steel. So H1 and LC200N are the only steels that can compare to the corrosion resistance of VANAX. Now, the cool thing, or the beautiful thing about VANAX is that with that corrosion resistance, you get really good edge retention and really good toughness. So the toughness of VANAX is about a 5 out of 10. Now that's going to be comparable to like S35VN, CTS XHP, 154CM. I think it's CPM 154 actually, but 5 out of 10 is pretty good for toughness. So, you know, as far as folding knives go, you know, it's a plenty tough for that application. Now, as far as edge retention, it's about a 5.5 out of 10. So that's really good edge retention considering the corrosion resistance and the toughness. Now, the edge retention is going to be similar to like S45VN, LMAX, and a little bit less than 20 CV, but pretty close to it. I think VANAX is one of the best steels you could ask for on a folding knife. It takes a really good edge. Now, I don't think it takes a really good fine edge. I don't think it takes a really good mirror edge. The more and more testing I do with it, with a low-angled mirror polished edge, it seems that it does have the tendency to microchip just a little bit. Now, I got to do a lot more testing to really be positive about that, but that's what it's leaning towards right now. However, it takes an incredible medium grit edge, and it actually will take a polished edge. It just doesn't seem like it holds the bite long term. So, you're in my opinion, you'd want to sharpen it between 600 and 800 grit, maybe 1,000 grit. And you can even go up to 1,200, 1,500 grit, but you don't really want to go too much more than 2,000, 2,500 grit, unless if it's, kind of just for show and you don't really care about the bite holding up over time. Because I'm not talking about sharpness right now. I'm talking about the bite that the edge holds, the microscopic serrations and teeth that are on the apex that create the bite. So when you go to cut into something, the teeth bite into the material, helping you start your cut so you don't slip out of the cut. Number 4, or my next favorite steel, MagnaCut. Now, I did struggle between wanting, because I kind of want to test more 15V. I do really, really like 15V, but I just don't have enough examples of it to really express how I feel about it. I need more examples of it. So that's to be determined. But MagnaCut steel I've tested very thoroughly. Now, MagnaCut steel is a super, super tough steel. 7 out of 10 with toughness, which is going to be similar to Nitro V, maybe a little bit less than Nitro V. 14C is a bit tougher than Nitro V, but anyways, edge retention, 5 out of 10. 5 out of 10 is really good. I mean, that's a really good edge retention. That's going to be similar to LMAX, VANAX, S45VN, S35VN, and 4V. So very good edge retention. Now, the edge retention and the toughness is going to play a huge part in the heat treat. We're going to talk more about that here in 1 second. Corrosion resistance is 9.5 out of 10. That's almost as good as VANAX, LC200N, and S110V. So it has incredible corrosion resistance, especially when you consider the toughness and its edge holding ability. Now, here's the thing. I've done a lot of testing on MagnaCut, and I know there's a lot of kickback from people, but personally, I think that MagnaCut needs to be heat treated at a certain HRC for specific applications. If it's going to be a fixed blade, I think 62 is just fine. 61, 62 I think is great for a fixed blade. Now, if it's going to be for a folding knife, a pocket knife, I would prefer it to be 63 plus. Now, at 63 plus, that's where it has, you know, its edge retention goes way up, and it's not just about the edge retention, guys. You know, a lot of people go back and be like, well, the edge retention isn't that big of a deal. I think it is, as far as, you know, the separation between 61 and 63. But the ability to take and hold the edge, meaning the types of edges it takes. Some of the softer MagnaCut I've tried would not take and hold a polish. It would not take and hold a fine edge. But as soon as it was heat treated harder, then it would. So like, this is the difference between whether or not you're gonna be able to put low angle, super slicey edges or not. And its ability to strop back and hone back, all those things get better and better when it's heat treated a little bit higher. And personally, for me, being a sharpener, I really like a knife's ability to get very sharp. I like its ability to hold its sharpness. I like its edge stability. You know, I like the bite, and I like the steel to be able to hold the bite. And all of that comes out at 63 plus to the best of MagnaCut's ability from my experience. Now, like I said, when impact and, you know, toughness is the biggest factor, then yeah, maybe 62. But for a folding pocket knife, toughness is not the biggest factor. And if you really want toughness, you know, you can play around with the geometry in that case. You don't need to take away my hardness, my edge retention, my ability to take fine edges, my ability, just all of that stuff in order to get a little bit of toughness on it, when that is the least of my worries. I would rather have it hold an edge better and take a better edge. Now, heat treatment is going to be very important with all these steels. It doesn't matter which one we're talking about. I'm kind of expressing if it's going to be in its optimal range. Maybe we'll talk about it a little bit more, but my next one, number 3, would be Rex 45. I am rapidly falling in love with Rex 45. I freaking dig this steel. I love this steel. It's not very tough. It's about 4 out of 10, a little bit less than S35 VN as far as toughness goes. But it holds an incredible edge, almost similar to M4. It's higher than LMAX and MagnaCut. Its corrosion resistance is where it falls down though. 2 out of 10 for corrosion. That's about similar to M4. So yes, it does not have good corrosion resistance. However, from my experience, its ability to take, hold, and maintain a screaming sharp edge is through the roof. When you lower back the angle on this steel, you can get some of the crispiest edges and some of the most amount of bite. Now, another thing I love about this steel is its ability to hone and strop back. From my experience, this steel hones back over and over and over and over, and it just continues to, you know, as long as there's no chipping or anything like that, but as long as you're just using it for regular cutting purposes, you know, when it starts to lose its bite a little bit, it'll come right back. You can bring it back over and over. It seems pretty responsive to stropping, you know, especially with low angle edges, because, you know, the higher the angle of the edge you do, the less likely it's going to be to do that, because the apex is thicker, right? So it's going to be easier to strop back a steel or hone back a steel that's thinner behind the apex. So I find that Rex 45 takes and holds really good low angle edges, and like I said, the edge retention is through the roof. So it just has all the qualities that I absolutely love and adore in a pocket knife steel. It has. And yeah, man, I would love to see more companies use it, but if they're gonna use it, they need to heat treat it well. Number 2 is crew wear. Now, freaking crew wear, man. Crew wear is an amazing steel. Its toughness is 5 out of 10. Really good toughness, especially, you know, it works great in fixed blades. You could use this in, just like MagnaCut, I guess. MagnaCut is a steel you can absolutely use in fixed blades or folding knives. Crew wear is a great steel for fixed blades, but it's also a great steel for folding knives. It has really good toughness, 5 out of 10. That's tougher than 4V. It's not as good as 3V, but it is tougher than S45 VM. Now, it does great with impact. So, you know, that is one thing that, you know, when you're talking about a tough steel, you know, its ability to take impact, which Cruwear does. Now, its edge retention is 8 out of 10, so great edge retention. That's similar to 4V, Spy 27, and M390. Its corrosion resistance is 6 out of 10, so not too bad for the corrosion resistance. It's not the most corrosion resistance, but it's definitely not bad. You keep it clean, keep it dry, it'll be just fine. But as far as the reasons why I love it, so this is why I love it. I love it because of its ability to take a fine edge and hold a fine edge. So when you look at edge retention across the board, right? From the time it gets sharpened, right off the stone, until it's no longer cutting paper, right? So let's say that. Let's say the fine edge holding ability is its ability to shave hair. So its ability from right off the stone to shave hair, how much cutting can it do until it stops shaving hair? And then after it stops shaving hair, how long will it continue to cut paper? Because hair is harder to cut than paper. So at the time it loses its ability to cut hair, it rapidly loses its ability to cut paper. From my experience, about 70 to 80% of the edge retention from Cruwear is with the fine edge. So that is a lot of fine edge holding ability, meaning you can cut for a long time and it's gonna hold that super crispy edge for a long time. But once that crispy edge goes away, the working edge is gonna quickly go away as well. Now, this is the exact opposite of Maximet. Maximet has a very short lasting fine edge, but a very long lasting working edge. This is a steel that, for Maximet, which is one of the highest edge retention holding steels, and we'll talk about the highest edge holding steel here in 1 second, but it's the second, I think it's the second edge holding steels that we know of, or that we have, I should say, on knives. Now, Maximet, like I said, its ability to hold a fine edge is very small compared to its ability to hold a working edge. So, you know, it doesn't take and hold a fine edge very well. It takes a great working edge. That's a steel you're gonna wanna keep in the medium grit, in my opinion. You don't wanna go with too low of an angle. You know, you can put a little bit of a lower angle edge, but regardless, you're not gonna wanna put a fine edge as far as grit goes on there. I personally think 400 to 600 grit is where you're gonna wanna be. If you put a polished edge on it at all, it will take it. It takes actually an incredible sharp edge with a meter polish, but it doesn't hold it. It quickly gets slick and quickly will start slipping out of cuts. So Cruwear is the exact opposite. And this is why I love Cruwear so much. Cruwear, since I love low angle edges, I love edges that, I like toothy edges, medium grit edges, and fine edges. And Cruwear does good with all of those. So it doesn't matter what kind of edge I want to put on Cruwear. If I want to put a super toothy edge, a medium grit edge, or a super polished edge, it doesn't matter. And because its ability, it has such a great ability to hold a low angle edge with good edge stability, that really helps, you know, as long as it's heat treated well. Also, because it takes such low angle edges, again, it strops back really well, it hones back very easily. This is a steel you can maintain and keep going for quite a while. I absolutely love Cruwear steel, whether it's on fixed blade or folder. Now, my number one, my absolute favorite. Now, before we get to that, what is the longest edge holding steel on pocket knives? That would be Rex 121. Rex 121 is the beast, the most superior edge holding steel that we have on folding knives. That steel is 10 out of 10 edge retention. It is an absolute monster. However, edge retention is not the only factor that I personally like to look at when choosing my favorite steels. Do I like it? Yeah. Do I love it? Absolutely. But just because a steel can hold an edge for a very long time doesn't mean it's going to be delightful to sharpen, doesn't mean you're going to like the results after sharpening. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to like the way it strops, hones back, and all of those good things. And then You know, and also maybe it doesn't take the type of edges you like, but regardless, Rex 121 is the absolute beast when it comes to edge retention. My favorite, number one, my favorite steel of all blade steels is K390. Now K390 is a beast mode steel as well. It has 5 out of 10 toughness. That is incredible toughness for its edge retention. That's similar toughness to S35VN, CPM 154, Vanex, XHP. And also, I want to say K390 is very similar to 10V. So 10V technically has a little bit better edge retention, but it's real close. Now, its edge retention is 9 out of 10. So that is one of the highest edge retention holding steels. Yes, there's a couple more above it, you know, S110V, Maximet, Rex 121, but it's right there. Now, its corrosion resistance where it falls a little bit, 4 out of 10. Now, with 4 out of 10, it actually takes a really good patina. That is something that a lot of people appreciate about K390. If you're the type of person that really likes the smoky color that a steel can take, this steel takes that very well. It does take a great patina. It ages really well, but you know, as long as you don't let it fully rust. Why do I love K390? So this is the absolute reason why. It's because this steel takes any kind of edge I want to put on it, whether it's a medium grit edge, a low grit edge, a very, very fine mirror polished edge. It loves it all. It also has such a great ability to hold a very fine edge. So if I want to put a super low angle, very slicey edge on my knife, this steel is like one of the best ones, you know. Same reason why I love Crewwear. This steel just holds a crispiness on its edge for forever. And then it also has a long working edge as well. So not only does it hold a really good fine edge, it also holds a really good working edge. And the types of edges it takes are just screaming sharp because of its edge stability. Because in order to get a super fine edge on a steel, you really need good edge stability so that it basically stretches the apex out, you know, when you're lowering the angle, because this is going to be a blunt edge or a tough edge. The finer you get, you know, the thinner that steel is behind the apex. And K390 does it really, really well and has the ability to hold that, because some steels are just too, you could say, too brittle. You know, they don't have the ability to really stretch that apex out, so they wind up not rolling over, but basically dulling a little bit and rounding the apex, when K390 really holds true to that apex. And, you know, being that it's, in my opinion, so let me be clear. I don't think any steel is hard to sharpen. That's why I didn't put it on the list. That's why I didn't talk about sharpening as far as ease of sharpening, because all steels are easy to sharpen, just some take longer than others. So a lot of people will say, well, that steel is very difficult to sharpen. No, it's not. There's a couple steels out there that are finicky to sharpen, but there's only a couple. So like S110V. S110V is a steel that's finicky to sharpen, and it's because of the way you have to remove the burr. But most steels are very easy to sharpen. It just takes a little bit more time. With higher wear resistance, it's gonna take longer to sharpen. It has higher wear resistance. But that's also in many cases what you want. Personally, I think K390 takes a hell of an edge very easily, and then it strops back really well. It hones back really well. It just seems to keep on kicking and kicking and kicking. And like I said, even if you like a toothy edge, K390 is a damn beast with a toothy edge. It not only takes a toothy edge, but it takes a nice toothy edge. So, you know, if you really want an aggressive edge, K390 can serve you very, very well. And, you know, with its great edge stability, I think the teeth at the apex just really have a lot of stability to them to be able to maintain while cutting, so that when you're done cutting, you know, it holds on to that toothiness instead of those little teeth breaking off and rolling over and things like that. But like I said, it's very easy to hone and strop back. Now, K390, like I said, it's my favorite steel of all time. I absolutely adore it. Again, Heat treatment's gonna be a factor with all these steels. I'm basing this on that these steels are heat treated at an optimal range. The softer any steel is, the tougher it's going to be. The tougher and stronger, the harder it is, the higher HRC, the more wear resistance it will have. So the more edge retention it will have. Now that's just one factor. Another factor is its ability to take a fine edge, its ability to take a polished edge, its ability to hold and have stability, edge stability, you know, like I was saying before, with low angle edges, if you like those types of edges. Which I don't see why anybody wouldn't. If you can have an edge that's a low angle edge that slices and is super sharp, that holds just as much stability as another steel with a higher angle edge, why wouldn't you want that, right? It's just gonna cut better, you're gonna have better edge retention, all of that good stuff. So I do think the application is going to be, you know, it's going to depend on the application of where exactly you want it, but specifically with folding pocket knives, I think the most important thing is going to be wear resistance, not toughness. Toughness is just, it just doesn't, I mean, I can't think of really any time I'm really doing anything with my pocket knife that would need such a level of toughness that I want to sacrifice my edge retention, that I want to sacrifice my ability to take and hold a fine edge, my ability to just all of that, for it to strap back really nicely and all that good stuff. The toughness, it never supersedes, is that the right word? My ability to hold an edge, or, you know, to take an edge and all of that stuff. Toughness never does as far as folding knives goes. When we're talking about impact knives, hard use knives, super tough knives, then yeah. But that's why also, you know, I think, you know, with certain knives, you know, you don't want to treat that knife as it's not supposed to be, right? It's like stabbing it into things and prying a knife that's 80 thousandths thick is not smart. It just doesn't matter, because of course it's gonna break, of course it's gonna whatever. That's not geometry made for that. Now, if a steel, or if you want, so in my opinion, if you want toughness, then that should come from the geometry. The geometry plays the biggest factor with toughness when talking about a pocket knife, or when talking about knives, period. When talking about knives. So if you want toughness, I say run it at the HRC that's optimal for it to have all, you know, the things that I was just talking about, with a little bit thicker geometry, right? Now, if we're talking about fixed blades again, you know, that might be, you know, because it's going to be taking a lot of impact and things like that, well, then you might want to go a little bit lower on the HRC, but not crazy low. Anyways, there you guys go. Work hard, stay tough. Until next time, peace.